people are starving, all right? The economy's all done. The person next to you will eat your lunch in a second. In a second, if their kids are starving.
The reality of it is, you got a contract, you got to make money, or even get a full-time job, whatever.
My name is Jason Silvestri, as you know. I'm a web brand developer. I use graphics design and software development to cultivate brand messages for my clients that separate them from the competition, okay?
What's up, everybody? Jason Silvestri here with another JasonSilvestri.com video. So this is actually a little bit different than the common video. I know a lot of you guys and gals are used to seeing me up on stage or posting selfies, as they call them, in the personal branding space, obviously helping entrepreneurs kind of navigate through the chaos of things. I've been doing personal branding for a couple of years. It's all been complimentary. Everything's been out of my pocket to do that. It's kind of my way of paying forward. But how I generate revenue is through brand development, in particular using technology to do that. I focus my majority of the time on all tiers of web application development, and it's been interesting. It's been an interesting battle because, unfortunately for me, most of my work is hidden behind firewalls and non-disclosure agreements. I've worked with a lot of great brands, even in the past year alone. I was doing a lot with OPSEC, with NFL, WWE, Rovio, those guys. Throughout just even the past couple of years, MIT, Harvard, Union Bank, Citizens Watch, American Family. I mean, there's just a huge array of companies that I've had a pleasure of doing work for. But again, that's all hidden away. So, part of this proof is in the pudding web series is to pretty much show what I'm capable of doing, at least a little bit. I'm not going to go crazy full scale because it's going to take a lot of time to do all that. But I want to at least show a little bit of everything. So it can help employers and potential clients just kind of see what I'm about. For me, I think I have a good group of recruiters that help me out from time to time. But unfortunately, most recruiters misrepresent candidates. It's rare that I actually get put into a place that encompasses all my skill sets. So this is kind of what I'm doing here. I'm creating this series to help, again, potential employers, potential clients, to see what I'm about and pick me for that collective. I'm at the stage of the game now where, my resources as me is wearing thin, and I need to choose wisely. It's not uncommon for me to get several calls, several opportunities, but I'm constantly battling who to go with, how to do it, when, for how long. It's been a very tedious process, when all I want to do is develop, right? So it's been interesting. So with a quick overview here, obviously, why am I producing this series? I just kind of covered that. The topics I plan to cover, the technology and design tools I plan to use, and I will be evolving throughout the series. So the look and feel of videos, format, that kind of thing. Developing a web application could take anywhere between 3 months to 3 years, depending on the scale of it. So I'm still trying to figure out how do I cram a bunch of that into an hour or so of video. So that's going to be an interesting battle that you guys will be able to see me tackle. And things I want to avoid. I definitely want to cover that at the end of this video here. So the topics I want to cover right now, obviously the series will cover the full web application development lifecycle. And pretty much when it comes to web application development, there's several tiers of development. There's the design phase, the presentation phase, the business logic, and then data access. People do tend to, as developers, leave out the design phase because that's kind of usually done by a separate individual. And quite frankly, most things are. So in most cases, you'll see the design, presentation, data, business logic, and the data access layer broken apart into 4 or 5 roles to accomplish such a thing. So at least with this series, what I'm going to cover for sure is a full graphics design of a website. I'm also going to create some other graphical pieces like a parallax 3D photo effect. It's a video requirement from our pretend clients. That's going to be a little fun tutorial. The process of splicing up images in color and converting them into HTML5 and CSS. So there are tools out there for core designers to leverage, like Adobe Muse, that allows you as a designer to convert a lot of your work into HTML5 and CSS without or almost little coding. I've never used the tool because I know how to do these two things from the get-go. So I'm assuming it'll save a bunch of time. I've just been asked a lot to to focus on this area here by a lot of clients lately because of mobile and responsive web development. So the prettifying of the UX experience with UI technologies, obviously the user experience is an important piece of the entire process. You know, you can have a great design, a great looking website, but if you can't attract people to stick around on your pages, you know, the average user visits the website for about 10 seconds and then leaves. You really have to capture them in that 10 seconds. And you do so by the user experience. So you'll see some development here. I'll be using things like jQuery and Twitter Bootstrap and that kind of stuff to show you some of that prettifying of content. The database architecting of the tables that will hold our data using SQL Server. So I wouldn't consider myself a DBA. However, I've had to do a lot in database development, database architecting, first, second, third, normal form, constraints, stored procedures, you know, one-to-one, one-to-many, relationship, foreign keys, all that kind of stuff. So I've had to do a lot of that to ensure my web applications work. So lastly, and one of the most important, the server-side coding of a web form, I'm going to do with some approaches through Microsoft's framework. You definitely want to have a server-side coding language in any application. You know, a lot of people these days can simply just, with the browsers we have, unclick JavaScript, and now you're prone to an attack, all because you didn't want to use the server-side technology. So server-side technology is important, and I'm going to be covering that as well. So the technologies and design tools I plan to use, again, I don't want to overwhelm anyone with the sheer magnitude. However, I am going to be using several different technologies to accomplish this web application. To start off with the design, so I'm going to be using Photoshop. You can obviously use Illustrator for a lot of different things. Illustrator is an Adobe product that handles vector layering, so you'll see a lot of work with that in logos, you know, giant 100-foot posters to simple DVD covers. Illustrator is used a lot for that. Where Photoshop comes in is more web development, at least in my opinion. A lot of motion picture modifications to images and those kind of things, and you're going to see that in use in both cases here. So the presentation layer, aside from the common HTML5 and CSS, the UX will include JavaScript, jQuery, Twitter Bootstrap, and maybe Angular. So aside from the HTML5 and CSS static layer I'm going to be creating, you're going to see some things from jQuery, JavaScript, Bootstrap, and I say maybe Angular only because I don't know how much time I'm going to have. Again, I'm trying to cram, you know, several weeks to a month or two of work into an hour or so of video, so that's going to be an interesting battle. But again, I'll see if I can throw that in there. So the business logic, I plan to use an ASP Web Forms application and MVC5. Web Forms has been my want for a long time. It gives me the leverage as a person who handles all these tiers to do whatever I want. Where MVC comes in, it essentially creates a clean separation between the models, views, and controls of a web application. It's definitely a much different approach than web forms, and I do see its advantages. You know, for if you're a new developer into the world and you're trying to just kind of figure out where to go with things, MVC as a design pattern is something that would help you in getting there. In fact, most businesses realize this, and that's one of the values of MVC is to provide not just unit testing, but also that platform, that layer of development that helps them get their newer developers on board quicker and faster. So data access layer, ADO.NET, code behind and relational mapper, links, and entity framework. I'm definitely going to show you that process as well. ADO.NET's been my preferred way of doing things through code behind. There's obviously ODBC and a couple of other different database languages that talk back and forth to .NET. The code behind version of ADO.NET's been my preferred. However, in later years, it's been relational mapper and, of course, links and the entity framework. Now, a lot of people, including myself, confused entity framework for a while for ADO.NET's relational mapper. That's actually two different creatures. I think one of the major differences between ADO.NET's relational mapper and entity framework is there's ways to reverse engineer code, which I was actually excited to see not too long ago. I haven't been asked to do a lot of entity framework stuff, but nonetheless, it's definitely something that's a viable solution to incorporate into your development. So SQL Server database architecting, again, we've covered this a little bit, but however, to kind of go into depth here, I am going to be creating some things in SQL Server like tables, like store procedures that's going to talk to our technology that handles the rest of the build-up. So video, Adobe After Effects and Vegas Pro, you'll see a lot of this. I'm actually using Camtasia to do this video right now, but the end product will be Vegas Pro or Adobe Premiere. I'm still thinking about which one to use. I was introduced to Vegas Pro with my first set of cameras that I purchased. They happen to be Sony. So I've used this. It's more fluid and easier to use than, say, Adobe Premiere. But as far as After Effects are concerned on video, I definitely use Adobe After Effects. I love the tool. It's a great industry standard utility. It's fantastic. It's a little complex to get your head around if you're new to it, but it's definitely one of the best technologies I've ever had a chance to play with, and it's why I do video, is being able to play with that technology. So moving forward here, things I'm going to try to avoid. I plan to try and not make development look easy. Look, I'm going to try and make this process as painless as possible. However, I don't want developers giving me crap, making it like I'm making things look easy. Look, I've been doing development for over 10 years. It's been a lot of stuff. I've done a lot in a lot of different areas. So my goal is not to make development look easy. It's a hard thing to learn. You know, it's obviously depending on which approach you take, but it is hard. I don't want to pretend it's an easy thing to be doing. And I also, similarly, I plan to not confuse the onlookers on what tiers to focus on. If you're new, if you're someone who's used to seeing JasonSilvestri.com videos but new to technology, and you're thinking, hey, you know what, maybe technology is something I want to do. You know, technology development is definitely a good money-making thing. What I don't want to do is confuse you on making you think you have to learn all tiers. If you can, you're great. You're going to be highly valuable, which kind of goes hand in hand with me always saying, you know, making yourself valuable is key to success. And I plan to cut corners. I've talked about this a little bit. So fast forwarding video, those kind of things are things I'm going to try and do to reduce the size of all this chaos. But I'm hoping that I can do things. So you might hear me talking and then all of a sudden I'll get right into something. That's because I'm just cutting out that garbage and getting you closer to the end result. So lastly, with the requirements, this is kind of like a, you know, X, Y, and Z company Incorporated wants us to do some base requirements. These are obviously some very basic set of requirements. You know, most business requirement documents, BRDs, are several pages long. However, this is encompassing a bunch of what we're going to do. So obviously create a clean, responsive web design for the basic foundation of the website. Our copywriters and content producers will handle the creation of content. So this is pretty straightforward. They're looking for a design, and when someone says, or a client says responsive, they're looking for a graphics design that's going to be compatible with smartphones, desktop applications, tablets, etc. Design a parallax 3D photo effect for our video. We'll need help with the video production as well. So obviously I'll keep this on my radar as something they might need, but the key factor here is that they're looking for a very specific action item to be completed, a parallax 3D photo effect for our video. We'll be handling that, obviously. Create a website using HTML5 and CSS using the colors and images from the primary design. So I would like to know more about the colors. I'm going to ask our pretend client on what colors to use and that kind of stuff. So we'll get into that. We would like some fancy UX features added to our website to display our content in a few ways. Tabs, collapsing panels, and/or concepts you might have in mind are ideal. So I'm going to assume X, Y, and Z companies worked with us for a long time and respects our judgment. However, in most business cases, you really want to make sure you have your requirements down in stone. That can create a lot of complications if you don't have things straight out in plain sight. So please use the latest Microsoft.NET framework to handle the server-side code. C# is fine. That's simple enough. We use SQL Server to store our information, but we don't have tables for this content. Please create the necessary tables. We also need a login system, but we are thinking phase 2 for that. Interesting. So obviously right from the bat, I know I'm going to have to create a table or two to hold this data. I think I have some questions on what data they're asking me to grab here, so that's going to be a question to be answered. However, I get the gist of it. As far as the login system, again, they're looking at phase 2, But I'm thinking if I were to jump on that, I would think Microsoft memberships is probably something I would use to do that. So maybe you might even see that in this video series. So that's it. I think we covered what we have to cover here. I will show these requirements at the beginning of each video just to kind of do a recap. But that's kind of where we're going with these things. So stay tuned for the next video, and I'll see you then.